Did you know that an entire race of superhumans has mysteriously vanished from our evolutionary story? Let's revisit the version of human evolution that science has taught us. We've been told that humankind evolved step by step, from Australopithecus to Homo sapiens. But in 2008, deep in the Denisova Cave, researchers uncovered something that didn't belong anywhere on that ladder. A single finger bone, tiny, ancient, and completely out of place, that refused to match any known branch of our evolutionary tree. That small discovery cracked open a mystery about a forgotten civilization that history never cared to mention. Who were these beings? Where did they come from? And what happened to them? Let's explore it together. Welcome to this episode of Digging History. It all began with something so small, you might have overlooked it entirely. Inside a dark corner of Siberia's Denisova Cave, archaeologists pulled a tiny bone fragment from the soil. At first, they assumed it belonged to a Neanderthal, or perhaps a modern human. But they were wrong. Very wrong. When scientists extracted its DNA, they froze in disbelief. It wasn't Neanderthal. It wasn't human either. It was something else. Something unknown. A completely different kind of human no one had ever seen before. That bone once belonged to a young girl who lived roughly 50,000 years ago, right there in what is now known as the Denisova Cave. Because of this incredible find, researchers named her kind Denisovans. And just like that, the tidy story of human evolution, us and the Neanderthals, fell apart. There was now undeniable proof that another branch of humanity had once walked the earth beside us. And even more astonishing, they weren't primitive. They were advanced, intelligent, and strong. Yet somehow, they had been erased from history. If you've never heard of the Denisovans before, don't worry. Most people haven't. The shocking twist? Traces of their DNA still live on today. Modern genetic studies show that people from Tibet, Mongolia, Papua New Guinea, and Australia still carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA in their genes. That's not a minor trace. That's ancestry, a missing chapter of human evolution hiding inside us. But here's what makes it even stranger. While we found dozens of Neanderthal skeletons, the Denisovans left behind almost nothing. Just a pinky bone, a few teeth, a jawbone discovered high on the Tibetan plateau, possibly a skull found in China. That's all. And yet, that tiny amount of evidence reshaped our entire understanding of who we are. How could a species capable of altering our DNA vanish without a trace? Did we wipe them out? Or did they simply disappear on their own terms? When news of the Denisovans broke in 2010, it sent shockwaves through the scientific world. Imagine realizing that you'd overlooked an entire human species living right beside us in prehistory. For decades, the story was neat and simple. Humans evolved in Africa, Neanderthals in Europe, and the two occasionally crossed paths. But the Denisovans shattered that simplicity. From that single bone in a Siberian cave, scientists extracted a completely new form of mitochondrial DNA, belonging to a species never before seen. Suddenly, humanity had not one lost cousin, but two. And this newly found lineage was just as significant, if not more so. Even more astonishing, the Denisovans weren't a local anomaly. Their DNA was found in multiple parts of the world. That means they weren't isolated. They were global. They influenced our biology, our immune systems, and even our minds. And still, their fossils remain nearly non-existent. How could a species so impactful vanish without a footprint? It's as if someone deliberately erased them from the record. That mystery is exactly what we're about to untangle. When scientists began reconstructing their story, they noticed something remarkable. Evidence of Denisovans wasn't confined to one cave. It stretched across the entire Asian continent. That means their presence was far more widespread than anyone imagined. And the remains we have found, like the Xiaohe jawbone from Tibet and the Harbin dragon man skull from northern China, don't resemble fragile cave dwellers at all. They look powerful. Take the Harbin skull. It's enormous. It earned the name Dragon Man for a reason. Thick brow ridges, a massive cranium, and a jaw built like stone. One glance, and you'd know. These weren't delicate beings. They were built for survival and possibly dominance. The Xiahe jawbone stands out immediately, nearly twice as thick as a modern one. Its molars so enormous, they seem to belong to an entirely different kind of being. Then there's the Denisovan skull, enormous, with a cranial capacity almost 20% larger than ours. And this isn't just about size, it's about complexity. Their brains weren't simply bigger, they were different, wired in ways we still don't fully grasp. Could this mean that the Denisovans weren't just another side branch of humanity, but a superior version of us that history conveniently forgot? Of course, size alone doesn't guarantee intelligence. That's true. But when researchers decoded their DNA, they found something extraordinary. Buried in their genome were unique neural pathways never seen in modern humans. This suggests their brains didn't just think differently, they processed the world differently. Imagine a mind capable of recognizing patterns instantly, recalling memories with photographic precision, computing and analyzing faster than we ever could. A consciousness sharpened like a blade, efficient, logical, and maybe even enhanced. And here's where science and ancient legend begin to blur. Across Asia, myths speak of towering beings, blessed with unimaginable memory and wisdom, entities who descended from the mountains or the skies to guide early humans. Are these just myths spun around campfires? Or are they distorted memories of the Denisovans, remembered as something more than human? Mainstream academia dismisses such parallels, but when you line up the facts, the skulls, the enormous brain volume, the distinctive DNA, you can't help but wonder, did these beings surpass us, not just physically, but mentally? And if they truly were superior, why did they vanish? Let's step beyond the cave for a moment. All across Asia, stories echo of enormous beings who once coexisted with smaller humans. In the highlands of Tibet, shamans speak of skyborn ancestors towering over men. In Mongolia, old tales describe fierce mountain giants living in hidden strongholds. Even the Bible hints at beings known as Nephilim, colossal figures wiped out by a great catastrophe. Could all these stories really be coincidence? Now let's weave together what's myth and what's measurable. The Dragon Man skull from Harbin, the immense Xiahe jawbone, the oversized molars unearthed in Denisova, each tells part of the same story. Add to that the undeniable proof that Denisovans interbred with our ancestors, leaving pieces of their DNA inside us. And suddenly, the legends don't seem so impossible anymore. Have you ever gasped for air while climbing a steep mountain? That's your body struggling. Oxygen levels drop as altitude rises, and most people start to fail beyond 10,000 feet. But not the Tibetans. They move effortlessly at 14,000 feet, breathing easily where others can barely stand. Their secret? A genetic mutation known as EPAS1, discovered in 2010 by a team led by Rasmus Nielsen. This gene helps blood capture and use oxygen in thin air far more efficiently. But here's the twist. It didn't come from us. It came from the Denisovans. Tests on Denisovan remains revealed the exact same genetic marker. That means these mysterious humans had already mastered life at extreme altitudes, tens of thousands of years before us. Picture it. While our ancestors clung to warm, lowland valleys, Denisovans were scaling frozen peaks, thriving in conditions we'd call unlivable. For them, the thin air of Everest-like climates was normal. They adapted to Earth's harshest environments while we were still struggling to survive the basics. And oxygen wasn't their only evolutionary advantage. Denisovans also passed down disease resistance genes, genetic armor that still protects humans today. Certain groups in Asia and Oceania inherited these molecular shields, giving them natural immunity to illnesses that decimated others. While waves of ancient plagues wiped out entire tribes, Denisovans walked through untouched, their immune systems operating on a level beyond ours. Their biology wasn't just strong, it was elite. And here's where it gets even stranger. Some of those inherited genes still shape us today. They make modern humans more resilient to infections, but also more prone to autoimmune reactions. It's almost as if we inherited too much power, like carrying a weapon that sometimes turns on its wielder. Was this just a random stroke of evolution? Or could it have been the result of deliberate, intelligent refinement? Something that began with the Denisovans themselves? And then comes perhaps the most intriguing clue of all: longevity. Genetic analysis shows that Denisovans may have possessed traits linked to slower cellular aging and enhanced neural durability. In simpler terms, they may have lived longer, aged slower, and stayed sharper for far more years than we do. Some scientists even speculate that these ancient humans endured environmental extremes and time itself with a resilience modern humans can only dream of. Combine that with their massive builds, their unmatched endurance at high altitudes, and their powerful immune systems, and what you get isn't just ancient humanity. It's an upgraded model built for survival. If Denisovans really possessed these traits, enhanced lungs, ironclad immunity, and possibly even extended lifespans, then they weren't simply another branch of the human tree. They might have been the prototype of a superhuman civilization. Back in 2008, Russian researchers excavating Denisova Cave came across something that changed everything: a polished greenish bracelet made from chloridolite. At first glance, it looked like something a medieval noble might wear. But when they carbon dated it, the results were almost unbelievable: between 40,000 and 70,000 years old. This wasn't a rough, primitive ornament. It was carefully crafted, smooth to the touch, and featured a flawless drilled hole, as if made by a precision machine. How could such technology exist in the Stone Age? Experts were stunned. The smooth, circular drilling suggested rotary tools, the kind of technology humans didn't officially master until tens of thousands of years later. Yet here it was, deep in the Siberian earth, left behind by Denisovans. So was this just a decorative trinket, or undeniable proof of a lost technical genius? Because honestly, finding such an artifact, there is like discovering an iPhone inside a pharaoh's tomb. It doesn't just challenge our timeline, it detonates it. Then came an even bigger shock. In 2016, archaeologists unearthed another find from Denisova Cave, a 7-centimeter bone needle, complete with a carved eye. Doesn't sound impressive at first, right? Until you realize it's over 50,000 years old, and still the oldest sewing needle ever discovered. And no, it wasn't made by Homo sapiens. It was Denisovan. That tells us that while our ancestors were wrapping themselves in raw hides, Denisovans were actually sewing clothing, tailoring it with precision instruments. To carve a needle that fine, with an eye for thread, requires geometry, focus, and advanced motor skills. That alone speaks volumes about their intelligence. They weren't simply surviving nature's wrath. They were engineering ways to overcome it. A community that crafts, designs, and innovates has to be organized. A society with skill divisions, maybe even trade or hierarchy. Does that sound like cavemen to you? Or a culture far ahead of its supposed time? And Denisovans didn't stop at tools. They left behind ostrich shell beads, beautifully polished and shaped. They carved intricate designs into stone fragments. They turned fossilized teeth into pendants and ornaments. These weren't random decorations. They had meaning. They were symbols. And symbols imply language, memory, and possibly even spirituality. Anyone can make a spear, but carving meaning into stone? That's a declaration of identity. It's communication. It's art. And for decades, we believed only modern humans were capable of that. Yet, piece by piece, the evidence paints a different picture. One of a species not just surviving, but thinking, planning, and creating. The Denisovans were more than intelligent. They were visionary. Now, let's zoom out and travel across Asia to explore a mystery carved in stone. In the remote Siberian wilderness stands Mount Sharia. There, colossal granite blocks rise out of the earth, so massive that modern cranes would struggle to lift them. Some weigh over 3,000 tons, stacked neatly like gigantic Lego bricks, their surfaces flat, corners sharp, edges too precise to be accidental. Historians dismiss it all as natural formations, just geology doing strange things. But here's the twist. Mount Sharia, lies right in ancient Denisovan territory. Coincidence? Maybe, but unlikely. Across Mongolia and Central Asia, similar patterns emerge. Giant cut slabs and mysterious megaliths in regions once inhabited by Denisovans. These stones aren't scattered chaos. They're deliberate, placed with engineering purpose. And that begs the question, if Denisovans were this strong, this intelligent, this adaptable, could they have built these impossible monuments? It gets even more incredible. Many of these megalithic sites aren't random at all. They're astronomically aligned. At Gornaya Shoria, certain walls face true north and south with perfect precision. In Mongolia, massive standing stones align with solstice sunrises and sunsets. The cosmic calendar carved in granite. Think about that. We're told Denisovans lived in caves, fashioning crude tools from stone. Yet in their very domain, someone was studying the heavens, calculating celestial patterns, and encoding them into architecture. That's not accident. That's astronomy. That's mathematics. That's civilization. The same level of precision seen in Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, and the Mayan temples. But older. Much older. So, who taught whom? Did later civilizations figure out those celestial alignments on their own? Or were they simply following a master plan left behind by the Denisovans? If these so-called primitive beings understood the stars well enough to map them in stone, then history has shown us only a fragment of a much larger truth.
The fire
now let's start connecting the threads.
We are safe here.
What if the Denisovans
the
weren't
cold
lonely
stays
mountain dwellers
outside.
at all, but the original architects of the ancient world? Imagine them as the engineers whose wisdom echoed outward, inspiring the pyramid builders of Egypt, the stone masons of the Andes, and the astronomer priests of the Mayan temples. Sounds far-fetched until you look closer. Everywhere, the same clues repeat. Massive stones cut with impossible precision, monuments aligned perfectly to the cosmos, and myths of sky beings or giant teachers who arrived before the dawn of civilization. Coincidence? Or fingerprints of the same forgotten teachers? Perhaps that's why megaliths appear suddenly in history, not evolving gradually, but arriving fully formed. No failed prototypes, no learning curve, just instant architectural mastery, almost as if someone handed humanity the blueprints. And maybe, just maybe, those blueprints were Denisovan in origin. Picture this, a group of Denisovans at work on a massive stone project, thousands of years before recorded history. No shouted instructions, no written language, yet every movement in sync, every block placed with perfect coordination, as if they were guided by a shared mind. How could that even be possible? Some scientists and researchers have proposed an idea that bends the limits of imagination. Perhaps Denisovans communicated telepathically. Now, it sounds like science fiction, but consider this. Their brain cases were nearly 20% larger than ours, and their DNA reveals unusual neural development patterns. We can't yet decode what that means, but it might point to cognitive abilities beyond our own comprehension. So maybe the Denisovans didn't need writing systems or elaborate symbols to transfer knowledge. Perhaps they possessed memory capacities so vast and minds so finely tuned that they could share thoughts directly, not in the fantasy sense of telepathy, but through a kind of deep human synchronization that modern science still can't replicate. And here's where the story turns. If fragments of Denisovan DNA still exist within us today, could traces of those heightened abilities still lie dormant inside? What if the potential for those ancient capabilities hasn't been lost, just forgotten? So what happened to them? Did evolution simply mute those gifts? Or were they stripped away through the chaos of survival? A downgrade hidden beneath progress. If Denisovans truly lived with advanced cognition, energy manipulation, and near superhuman mental processing, then maybe we didn't evolve beyond them. Maybe we devolved. Now, let's climb back to the Tibetan highlands. At altitudes where most humans gasp for air, farmers there live, work, and breathe with ease. Their secret? A unique gene variant called EPAS1, a direct inheritance from Denisovans. This mutation allows their blood to capture oxygen in incredibly thin air, granting them an edge unmatched by any other population. Without that Denisovan gift, even today's mountaineers might never have survived the Himalayas. Think about what that truly means. While our ancestors stayed in lush valleys to avoid suffocating altitudes, Denisovans were building homes in the clouds, adapting to heights we still struggle to endure. And through them, that genetic superpower lives on in Tibetans today, a living monument to their resilience. It's one thing to say Denisovans lived in the mountains. It's another to recognize that they mastered them, engineering survival, where death should have been guaranteed. But here's where it gets truly provocative. Recent studies suggest that Denisovan DNA doesn't just impact survival, it may also shape cognition. Populations carrying higher traces of Denisovan ancestry often show enhanced spatial reasoning, memory retention, and problem-solving skills. Surely that can't be pure coincidence? Mainstream scientists tread carefully here. No one wants to open the door to controversial theories about inherited intelligence. Yet, when you zoom out, the pattern becomes hard to ignore. If the Denisovans had neural networks more advanced than ours, then remnants of their genius might still echo within us. And here's the mystery that still haunts archaeology. Denisovans thrived across Asia for hundreds of millennia. Then, almost overnight, they vanished. Around 40,000 years ago, their tools, fossils, and cultural traces simply disappear. And guess who shows up around that exact time? Us, Homo sapiens. History tells the story again and again. Two human species meet, and only one walks away. The evidence shows Denisovans were doing just fine until our ancestors arrived. Then, silence. No traces, no artifacts, as though an entire species was deleted from existence. Did they simply fade away? Or were they erased? Not by nature, but by us. Because if Denisovans truly possessed greater strength, endurance, and intellect than modern humans, the claim that they simply died out starts to sound a little too neat, a little too convenient. Genetic evidence already reveals something staggering. The Denisovans never truly vanished. They blended with us. Populations across Asia and Oceania still carry traces of their DNA, which means our ancestors didn't just meet these beings in passing. They lived beside them, shared fires, exchanged food, and even intermarried. But coexistence rarely stays peaceful when power is unbalanced.
The tracks are fresh.
Picture two species inhabiting the same lands. One physically superior and intellectually gifted, the other fiercer, more aggressive, and vastly greater in numbers. That's not harmony. It's a recipe for inevitable conflict. Some scientists believe Homo sapiens simply outlasted the Denisovans, winning through numbers, resources, and endurance. But others whisper of a far darker possibility, a prehistoric cleansing. If the Denisovans truly represented a super civilization, perhaps our ancestors didn't outthink them. They eliminated them. What better way to secure dominance than to erase an entire species and their legacy from memory itself? Yet what if they were never destroyed at all? There's another theory, one far more mysterious. Ancient stories speak of wise beings who withdrew into remote mountains, hidden caves, and subterranean realms once humanity began to spread. Tibetan legends tell of Shambhala, a hidden kingdom waiting to resurface when the world is ready. Mongolian myths speak of ancestors who disappeared into the earth, promising to return someday. Could these be echoes of the Denisovans' retreat? A conscious decision to vanish from sight rather than fight for survival. Then came the world's reset. Roughly 12,800 years ago, the planet plunged into chaos. Temperatures dropped sharply, ice caps crumbled, and colossal floods ripped across continents. Science names this the Younger Dryas event. Conventional archaeology frames it as just another natural climate shift, but many alternative historians call it the turning point, the great cataclysm that erased entire civilizations, possibly including the Denisovans themselves. Picture their mountain fortresses crushed beneath landslides, valleys drowned beneath roaring floods, and survivors scattered into oblivion. Sound familiar? From the Epic of Gilgamesh, to Noah's flood, to Native American tales of world renewals, the stories always align. The earth was cleansed. If the Denisovans truly forged great societies, this single cosmic disaster could explain everything. Why their technology, their cities, their monuments are little more than dust today. Their megastructures shattered, their wisdom lost beneath the waves, and their descendants driven deep underground. Maybe humanity didn't erase them at all. Maybe the planet did. And if a civilization that powerful could vanish without a trace, what else have we forgotten? What other chapters of human history still lie buried beneath the soil, waiting for us to uncover them? What do you think? Could the Denisovans have been the architects of the forgotten world? Share your theories with us in the comments below. Keep your minds open. And until next time, this has been Digging History.